Today is January the 18th. What was the point of Stephen's sermon? Stephen is asked a question by the high priest, and in response, he gives a little history lesson. Let's read the start of that. Acts 17, 1-16. The high priest asks Stephen, "Are these things so?" Stephen replied, "Brothers and fathers, listen to me. The glory of God appeared to our ancestor Abraham when he was in Mesopotamia. Before he lived in Haran, he said to him, 'Leave your country and your relatives. Go to the land that I'll show you.' And he left the country of the Chaldeans and settled in Haran. After his father died, God had him move from there to this country in which you are now living. He didn't give him any of it as a heritage, not even a foot's length, but promised to give it to him as his possession and to his descendants after him, even though he had no child. God spoke in these terms that his descendants would be resident aliens in a country belonging to others who would enslave them and mistreat them during 400 years. But I'll judge the people whom they serve, said God, after they shall come out and worship me in this place." Then he gave him the covenant of circumcision, and so Abraham became the father of Isaac, and circumcised him on the 8th day. And Isaac did likewise to Jacob, and Jacob to the 12 patriarchs. The patriarchs, jealous of Joseph, sold him into Egypt, but God was with him and rescued him from all his afflictions, and enabled him to win favor and to show wisdom when he stood before Pharaoh, king of Egypt, who appointed him ruler over Egypt and over all his household. Now there came a famine through Egypt and Canaan, and great suffering, and our ancestors could find no food. But when Jacob heard that there was grain in Egypt, he sent our ancestors there on their first visit. On the second visit, Joseph made himself known to his brothers, and Joseph's family became known to Pharaoh. Then Joseph sent and invited his father Jacob and all his relatives to come with him, 75 in all. So Jacob went down to Egypt. He himself died there, as well as our ancestors, and their bodies were brought back to Shechem and laid in a tomb that Abraham had bought for a sum of silver from the sons of Hamor in Shechem. So Stephen's response, his sermon, it looks at first glance that he meanders all over the history of Israel, but actually he isn't. His basic point, he opens saying, God appeared to Abraham. This key point he will come back to twice more for a total of 3 times in his sermon. God appeared to our forefathers. Now, he starts out with proof from history. God appeared to Abraham. He says the message that God gave to Abraham. God appeared to Joseph, and he mentions that Joseph's brothers were jealous of him. And then God appeared to Moses. He restates that basic point in the middle of his sermon. God appeared to Moses again in the burning bush. But he makes the point in the second half of the sermon of saying, but the fathers, the people of Israel, rejected God's presence. He then goes back. Moses spoke for God, but the people's heart turned back to Egypt. Then he quotes Amos, where Amos condemns Israel for idolatry. Then he quotes Isaiah, where Isaiah condemns Israel for relying on the temple and not the God of the temple. And he finishes by saying, God has revealed himself a third time to us in the righteous one. And you not only killed the prophets, you killed the righteous one as well. Now, these first 16 verses deal with God revealing himself to Abraham and to Joseph. Let's read the story of God revealing himself to Joseph through the dreams of Pharaoh. Genesis chapter 41.
Genesis 41, verses 1 through 36, New Revised Standard Edition. After 2 whole years, Pharaoh dreamed that he was standing by the Nile, and there came up out of the Nile 7 sleek and fat cows, and they grazed in the reed grass. Then 7 other cows, ugly and thin, came up out of the Nile after them, and stood by the other cows on the bank of the Nile. The ugly and thin cows ate up the 7 sleek and fat cows, and Pharaoh woke. Then he fell asleep and dreamed a second time. 7 ears of grain, plump and good, were growing on one stalk. Then 7 ears, thin and blighted by the east wind, sprouted after them. The thin ears swallowed up the 7 plump and full ears. Pharaoh woke, and it was a dream. In the morning his spirit was troubled, so he sent and called all the magicians of Egypt and all its wise men. Pharaoh told them his dream, but there was none who could interpret them to Pharaoh. Then the chief cupbearer said to Pharaoh, "I remember my faults today. Once Pharaoh was angry with his servant and put me and the chief baker in custody in the house of the captain of the guard. We dreamed on the same night, he and I, each having a dream with its own meaning. A young Hebrew was there with us, a servant of the captain of the guard. When we told him, he interpreted our dreams to us, giving an interpretation to each according to his dream. As he interpreted to us, so it turned out. I was restored to my office, and the baker was hanged." Then Pharaoh sent for Joseph, and he was hurriedly brought out of the dungeon. When he had shaved himself and changed his clothes, he came before Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, "I had a dream, and there was no one who could interpret it. I have heard it said of you that when you hear a dream, you can interpret it." Joseph answered Pharaoh, "It is not I. God will give Pharaoh a favorable answer." Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, "In my dream I was standing on the banks of the Nile, and 7 cows, fat and sleek, came up out of the Nile and fed in the reed grass. Then 7 other cows came up after them, poor, ugly, and thin. Never had I seen such ugly ones in all the land of Egypt. The thin and ugly cows ate up the first 7 fat cows, but when they had eaten them, no one would have known that they had done so, for they were still as ugly as before. Then I woke. I fell asleep a second time and saw in a dream 7 ears of grain, full and good, growing on one stalk. And 7 ears, withered, thin, and blighted by the east wind, sprouted up after them. And the thin ears swallowed up the 7 good ears. But when I told it to the magicians, there was no one who could explain it to me." Then Joseph said to Pharaoh, "Pharaoh's dreams are one and the same. God has revealed to Pharaoh what he is about to do. The 7 good cows are 7 years, and the 7 good ears are 7 years. The dreams are one. The 7 lean and ugly cows that came up after them are 7 years, as are the 7 empty ears blighted by the east wind. They are 7 years of famine. It is as I told Pharaoh. God has shown Pharaoh what he is about to do. There will come 7 years of great plenty throughout all the land of Egypt. After them there will arise 7 years of famine, and all the plenty will be forgotten in the land of Egypt. The famine will consume the land. The plenty will no longer be known in the land because of the famine that will follow, for it will be very grievous. And the doubling of Pharaoh's dream means that the thing is fixed by God, and God will shortly bring it about. Now, therefore, let Pharaoh select a man who is discerning and wise, and set him over the land of Egypt. Let Pharaoh proceed to appoint overseers over the land, and take 1/5 of the produce of the land of Egypt during the 7 plenteous years. Let them gather all the food of the good years that are coming, and lay up grain under the authority of Pharaoh for food in the cities, and let them keep it. The food shall be reserved for the land against the 7 years of famine that are to befall the land of Egypt, so that the land may not perish through the famine."
So notice in Genesis, verse 16 there of chapter 41, Joseph says to Pharaoh, God will give you a favorable answer. I can't interpret the dreams. God will. And then in verse 25, Joseph again says, God has revealed to Pharaoh what he is about to do. It is God who revealed himself. What do we do about this today? Listen for God. Hear God. Read his words. Don't reject him. Scripture reading from the New Revised Standard Version by Emily Herrera. If you have a question, drop it in the comments section below.